When Order 66 occurred, most Jedi planted their feet and held the ground they stood on. Instead of running away and saving themselves, countless Jedi Masters would make a stand in an attempt to buy more time for their Padawans to run away towards freedom. Despite all of their flaws and dogmatic views, many Jedi met their deaths with a stoic determination that can only be described as heroic.
I'm a potato.
Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Order 66 was one of the darkest moments in the Jedi Order's 25,000 year history. Many Jedi were tested, most failed on their own terms. But some did far more than just fail. Some, when faced with the prospects of torture and death, capitulated and joined the Empire. Today we'll be taking a look at the feared Inquisitorius, an organization of Force-sensitive dark side agents who directly served Darth Sidious and Vader. Made up of mostly former Jedi, these individuals were definitely not the best and brightest from their organization, but with the mighty resources of the Empire at their back, they represented a huge threat to all of the remaining Jedi in the galaxy, including Obi-Wan Kenobi. Today we'll be ranking all of the Inquisitors by their combat abilities from weakest to strongest. The fifth brother was a greenish-gray skinned humanoid of an unknown species. We don't know much about his time in the Jedi Order. What we do know about him was he was a pretty brash and foolish individual who oftentimes acted without thinking.
I'm surprised to see you here.
The kill is mine.
You are short-sighted.
He also routinely fought with his fellow Inquisitorius, specifically the Seventh Sister. Despite getting into fights all the time, the fifth brother was still a really clumsy duelist. He lacked grace and style, and at the same time lacked power both physically and through the Force. This becomes apparent when he and the Seventh Sister try to take on a real badass like Ahsoka Tano. The fifth brother is quickly knocked out by the former Jedi. The next time that the fifth brother encounters Ahsoka Tano would be on Malachor. He would once again be quickly disarmed after Ahsoka strikes his hilt and destroys his lightsaber. Unfortunately, this time around the former Sith Maul was also involved in the fight. He didn't have the same sense of mercy that Ahsoka did, and he would strike the fifth brother down immediately after he was disarmed. The fifth brother will be featured in the live-action Kenobi series because we've already seen him in the trailers, and somehow he survives his ordeal, so maybe live-action fifth brother is a little more competent, and so we can move him up the rankings a little bit. The 10th brother is relatively unique amongst the Inquisitors because he wasn't a Padawan that was caught after Order 66 and then turned to the dark side. Instead, he was the Jedi Master Proset Dib. He was known for being especially keen in all of his senses, except for his sight. And that was because Proset was a Miraluka and born without eyes. From the outset, the blind Jedi believed that it was against the Order's doctrine to serve as soldiers in a war. On one mission early on in the Clone Wars to the planet of Pishrich, Proset Dib snaps when he witnesses a cave-in that destroys an entire underground city full of sentient beings. The cave-in was caused by an army of separatist droids, but Proset Dibs unreasonably blames the Jedi for causing this tragedy to happen. He ends up assaulting Mace Windu by punching him in the face and then proceeds to challenge the Jedi Master to a duel. I would say that Proset Dib did actually have a point about the Jedi's role in the war. But like the Jedi turncoat Barriss Offee, the second these anti-war dissenters used violence to push their agenda, not only were they being hypocrites, they also lost that moral high ground that they stood on. As the blind Jedi and Mace Windu continues to fight, we see that Proset Dib's confusion and opposition towards the war was tainted with the dark side. Mace Windu ends up easily disarming Proset Dibs and ends the duel without killing him. Proset Dibs is captured and then brought back to the Jedi High Council on Coruscant, where he would be put on trial. Proset attempts to goad the Jedi High Council into killing him, but instead receives mercy from Mace Windu, who refuses to allow him to die. In return, Proset refuses to accept what he perceives as the false compassion of the Jedi Order. But he has no say in the matter and is confined within the Jedi archives and forced to do librarian work until Order 66 happened. Despite being the only Jedi Master in the Inquisitorius and also one of the most experienced fighters, the 10th brother's combat skills seem to be impaired by his lack of eyes. Even when he was a Jedi, he still seemed to struggle in combat and miss details in his surroundings. Other Jedi like Kanan Jarrus managed to use the Force to see even better after losing his eyesight, but in the case of the 10th brother, his lack of vision would be his ultimate downfall. During the Battle of Dax City, the 10th brother and his fellow Inquisitors managed to corner the rogue Jedi Padawan, Farron Barr. Before they're able to kill him though, Barr uses a mind trick to trigger Order 66 in the Purge troopers that are accompanying the Inquisitors. The clones begin to fire on their Inquisitors, and the 10th brother is found severely lacking. Despite the fact that he's in Jar-Kai form or dual wielding, he takes multiple rounds through his body and dies. Before we continue today's video, I'd like to talk to you guys about something I'm incredibly passionate about, and that's restrictive waistbands. Now, we've all had to deal with ridiculous workplace dress codes, societal pressure from our peers to look like them or dress in cool ways. Heck, in my last real job that I had, I was fired because I refused to wear pants. Because where I was going, I didn't need pants. Anyway, restrictive waistbands, dress codes, pants, these are all a sign of the underlying moral decay caused by what's known as fashion fascism. I mean, take a look at Kylo Ren. Not only did his high and restrictive waistline lead him to supporting a neo-imperialistic organization that blew up entire star systems, it also caused him to kill his dad. You know who didn't kill his dad and blow up an entire star system? Chewbacca. And look, no pants. Now, I'm not saying that wearing pants makes one evil. Yes, it does. Most of us do not have the genetic capability to grow enough hair on our body to create fur pants so that we can walk around naked, which is where today's sponsor, MeUndies, comes into play with their new line of loungewear. Yes, the material on this loungewear is so comfortable I might as well be naked. The fabric feels dense and cool to the touch. And yeah, I like it so much that I'm actually not wearing a V-neck for the first time on camera in a really long time, although they do have V-necks. I don't know why they didn't give me a V-neck. MeUndies has a wide range of products that are ridiculously comfortable and functional, and they come in all sorts of cool patterns. Check out the description below for a link to MeUndies and use our promo code for an additional 15% off on your first order. Thank you for your patience. Back to the rest of the video. The sixth brother was formerly known as Bill Vallon when he was a member of the Jedi Order. We're unsure of what race he was, but he's green-skinned and apparently smells like fish, which makes me already not like him. Like many of the other Inquisitors, the sixth brother was directly trained by Darth Vader and suffered gruesome injuries because of his lack of skill. In the sixth brother's case, his failure was that he leaned too much on the Jedi's defensive lightsaber techniques. Dark side users were supposed to go on the attack. The sixth brother would get his left hand sliced off by Vader as a result. Later on, the sixth brother would take part in the Battle of Dax City as well. He would end up deep underwater with the 10th brother when they cornered the Padawan, Farron Barr. The sixth brother would survive the initial onslaught of the blaster fire from the Purge troopers, and he and the ninth sister would use the Force to create an opening for them to escape. But the sixth brother would needlessly betray the ninth brother by cutting off one of her legs. The sixth brother would meet his unfortunate demise at the hands of Ahsoka Tano, who took out a lot of Inquisitors now that I think about it. She was apparently unarmed when he approached her, and she somehow managed to set off the kyber crystals in his lightsaber while he was holding it near his face, and it kind of just exploded and killed him. So he's not that competent, I guess. Little is known about the eighth brother's time as a Jedi, but we do know his species. He's a Tyrellian Django jumper, which sounds really sketchy. You might remember the criminal Casilda Kryar. She was also a Django jumper, and as her name might suggest, this species was naturally gifted with acrobatic skills and mad hop. Now, the eighth brother was characterized as an individual who was extremely impatient and impulsive. While tracking Maul on Malachor, he would accidentally run into Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, and Ahsoka Tano. He attempts to ambush them, but when he realizes that all three individuals were carrying lightsabers, he tries to disengage from them, but is eventually chased down by Ahsoka and Kanan, and easily disarmed with the help of their astromech buddy Chopper. The eighth brother would eventually get another shot for revenge, though, when the fifth brother and seventh sister arrive and free him. The eighth brother was competent enough to ambush Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger. He manages to even knock out both individuals. But when facing real warriors like Maul and Ahsoka Tano, he didn't really stand much of a chance. Out of all three Inquisitors who made it to Malachor, the eighth brother would survive the longest, which I'm not sure was a result of skill. It could have just been luck. Once the eighth brother realized that he was the last one standing and his lightsaber had been damaged by Kanan Jarrus, he would attempt to escape using his lightsaber's helicopter mode, and unfortunately would fall apart after just a few seconds, causing him to plunge to his death. He would have made it higher on this list if he had used the Force to save himself from falling to his death. The seventh sister was a female Murialan who oftentimes teamed up with the fifth brother on missions. She'd be sent after Ahsoka Tano, Kanan Jarrus, and Ezra Bridger. Although she was far more competent than the fifth brother and was able to defeat Ezra and Kanan early on in their training, when facing a talented duelist like Ahsoka Tano, she could barely hold her own. And during her first meeting with the Great Jedi, Ahsoka disabled the sister's lightsaber using the Force. The seventh sister was quite smart and ambitious though. She sought the Grand Inquisitor's job and dreamed of leading the Inquisitorius herself. She also liked to use ID-9 seeker droids to serve as her eyes and also as a weapons platform, which enhanced her lethality. During the duel on Malachor, the seventh sister held her ground better than her two counterparts, but against Maul, who was a master Sith assassin at one point, she stood no chance. She was quickly disarmed by Maul and suspended into the air by the Force and cut down. Known formally as the Jedi Masana Tide, the ninth sister might look like a giant brute, but her true skills lies in her ability to sense others' emotions and feelings through the Force. Perhaps that's why she turned to the dark side in the first place. Maybe she was tired of all the Jedi around her trying to hide their true feelings because, they couldn't actually be themselves because the Jedi Code was so dogmatic. Whatever it was that transformed her into an Inquisitor, it definitely didn't rob the ninth sister of her humor and innate gusto. She really knew how to read people well and was at ease around everyone, including someone as terrifying as Darth Vader. On one mission, she was even able to read the Dark Lord and could tell that he was desperate for combat with the Jedi, partly because he hoped to end his own suffering permanently. The ninth sister was a very insightful individual and perhaps understood Vader better than he understood himself. She was so confident in her understanding of her situation that she ignored Darth Vader's call for help when he was ambushed by a bunch of bounty hunters and lost his lightsaber. Now, the ninth sister is a member of the Dawutin species, which is well known for their toughness, strength, and fighting abilities. Her lightsaber skills were adequate when fighting, Jedi younglings and Padawan, but she lacked the strength to best an opponent like Darth Vader. She would lose an eye during her sparring training with the Dark Lord. She also lacked the speed to defeat someone like Cal Kestis, who sent her flying out of a tree on Kashyyyk. And the trees on Kashyyyk are really tall, miles tall. So we're not exactly sure if she survived, but during the battle of Dock City when the sixth brother cut her leg off and she was left basically defenseless around a bunch of purge troopers, well, she survived that. So she's pretty badass. The second sister was former Jedi Trilla Suduri, the Padawan of Jedi Knight Siri Junda. Captured shortly after Order 66 while attempting to protect a group of Padawan and younglings, Trilla Suduri was both a brilliant Jedi hunter and a skilled duelist. She would become one of the most talented and feared Inquisitors and would be paired with the ninth sister on several missions. When facing a young Cal Kestis, she was clearly far more powerful than the Padawan, who would have been around the same age as her. Instead of defeating Cal Kestis outright, though, the second sister let him survive and allows him to track down a list of Force sensitives hidden in a Jedi holocron. The second sister, of course, was also after this list and just wanted Cal Kestis to do all of the heavy lifting for her, which is a great strategic move that also showcases her patience, which was a rarity for most Darkside users. We also see the second sister in action during the skirmish on the world of Onatotho, where she calmly led a detachment of purge troopers straight into the firing line of insurgents. Using her spinning blade as a shield, she possessed the stride and confidence a Sith warrior or Jedi Knight would have on the battlefield. Cal Kestis would eventually overcome the second sister in their last meeting together. He had learned much about the Force and recalled his old Jedi training after keeping away from the Force for several years. He also had received tutelage from Trilla's old master, Siri Junda. After her defeat, Trilla was given a chance to forgive her old master for her failures to protect her, but she's cut down by Vader before she's even able to say a word. Before we head on to our last and most powerful Inquisitor, let's talk about some Inquisitors that we can't really rank because there's not that much information about them. Like the fourth sister. We've never actually seen her in action before, but she's going to be featured in the new Kenobi series along with the third sister known as Reva. I imagine if these two Inquisitors are going to give Obi-Wan Kenobi trouble, they're probably going to be pretty high ranked on this list. I guess we'll just have to wait and see tomorrow. Lastly, we also have two unidentified Inquisitors known only as the Red-Skinned Inquisitor and the Twi'lek Inquisitor. They had accompanied Vader on his mission to destroy the former Jedi Master known as Eth Koth. While Darth Vader engaged Koth, the two unidentified Inquisitors were sent after his wife and Force-sensitive child. But while back at the base, Vader senses something is off with the two Inquisitors. He walks over to them while they're enjoying a drink and pulls his blade and tries to cut the red-skinned Inquisitor down. The Twi'lek Inquisitor pulls out his own blade and defends her. Vader, of course, finds this romantic attachment unacceptable, and the Inquisitors know this as well and flee the base. They attempt to take the fight to Vader and eliminate him before he can hunt them down, but their attempt is futile and they both die from each other's blades. Always knew that Vader was a romantic. Lastly, we have the Grand Inquisitor, the Pwa-an leader of the Inquisitors and former Jedi Temple Guard. Temple Guards were Jedi Knights who adopted an anonymous identity in order to serve as protectors of the Order. They were trained to not only prevent enemies from attacking the Temple, they were also tasked with bringing rogue Jedi to justice and guarding those who had turned to the dark side. The Grand Inquisitor would train and guide the other Inquisitors in his group, but he would also have to maintain his superiority over them to prove that he deserved his position. All of the other Inquisitors were clearly gunning for his job. The Grand Inquisitor was one of the few individuals who Vader could trust with more sensitive missions. Assigned to the Lothal sector to hunt down the Lothal rebel cell, the Grand Inquisitor was far more powerful than Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger in their first few confrontations. During the final battle with Kanan Jarrus, the Grand Inquisitor was able to manhandle both Kanan and his apprentice Ezra Bridger. He actually manages to launch Ezra off a very high platform. Kanan Jarrus, thinking that Ezra has died, is relieved because now
I have nothing left to fear.
he goes into dual wielding mode and manages to fight on the same level as the Inquisitor. But then while delivering a bunch of one-liners about the Force, Kanan Jarrus just sticks his lightsaber into the hole inside of the Grand Inquisitor's lightsaber and breaks it in half. It's a real questionable move. I don't know why the Grand Inquisitor would just stand there and allow this to happen. But he's lost the battle and he chooses death instead of disappointing Darth Vader, because even he, the head of the Inquisitors, is ultimately replaceable. So there you have it, guys. That is our ranking of all of the Inquisitors from weakest to strongest. Now, I'm sure this list will change a little bit with the release of the Kenobi series, but let me know in the comment section below what you think about this list and how you rank them from highest to lowest, or lowest to highest. Also, guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our coverage of the Kenobi series. And as usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,